Hey everyone, Dominic the Primetime Treasure Hunter here. In this video, I'm going to provide an update on the eBay scandal that broke yesterday, which I have referred to as eBay Gate for lack of a better word. I'm going to update you on the alleged involvement of eBay's former CEO. I'll talk to you a little bit about eBay's response, and I am going to go over with you in detail the charging document, the criminal complaint against multiple eBay executives and employees. Because while yesterday I provided an overview of the initial media accounts of what happened, including the press conference from the U.S. Attorney, from the Department of Justice, the actual document was not something that I found available for review until later. And that is the document that really is going to get into the nuts and bolts and the details much more than what you're going to get from any press conference or from news articles, which even if you read multiple news articles about what happened, they do tend to get repetitive over time and say the same thing over and over. So just like yesterday, I want to make sure that I create this video to basically preserve what happened here, because as you know, once stuff gets old out there on the internet, it could be hard to find things. Links could just go away, and all of a sudden you can't find the video of the press conference anymore. You can't find the link to the charging document anymore. These types of things happen over time. So with making a YouTube video, that helps preserve it. That's one reason for it. The other reason for it is that I think that most people will not go and read the 68-page criminal complaint. So my goal is to synthesize that information for you here and present it to you. Now, I'm going to try to do that as efficiently as I can, but this is admittedly going to be a longer video because of the amount of information I need to go over with you. But I think it's important because I don't think we could let this stuff get swept under the rug. If there are people within eBay who genuinely are upset about this and frustrated about this and want things to change, we need to make sure that this is all out in the open and that it's exposed and that it's not swept under the rug, because it's only by an acknowledgement of this stuff that happened, allegedly, that that we could really move forward in a productive way. And hopefully the platform that I love and have been using, since around 2000 or a little bit earlier, could hopefully make some major improvements down the road. But first, we've got to get through the stage of processing this stuff and acknowledging everything that that went down. So let me jump into the update. I'm going to share my screen here in terms of what came out last night about former CEO's involvement here of eBay, Devin Wenig, alleged involvement, I should say. And I'll make this disclaimer again. I said this yesterday. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. There's been no one that has been convicted of anything yet. These are charges, but I am presenting, what the evidence is that's alleged to support the charges here. Now, this comes from Bloomberg Law, okay? And I should just mention one other thing as just as a little statement before you feel like you need to maybe watch this whole entire screen the whole time. You don't have to do that. I'm going to put up the charging document, go over different points, but feel free to kick back, relax, listen to this as almost like a podcast of sorts. Listen to it while you're driving. Most of it you don't have to look at. There'll be a few things I want you to see, and I'll make sure I mention that, so you could always just stop what you're doing if you're packing, shipping, whatever it is you're doing, and look at it then or look at it at a later point. But here's Devin Wenig right here, and I'll just read to you the first couple paragraphs so you understand what it says here. Last year, eBay's then Chief Executive Officer Devin Wenig fired off text to a colleague expressing his ire over unflattering coverage by a blogger of his oversight of the e-commerce site. What followed, prosecutors said, was a criminal scheme by his underlings to cyberstalk the couple behind the online newsletter. As I mentioned yesterday, that is the e-commerce Bytes newsletter. I'll show it to you in a moment. Wenig isn't charged in the case, but two former top eBay security executives and 4 other ex-employees were. While there's no suggestion in court papers that Wenig knew of the plot, prosecutors say his angry emails triggered the scheme, and they play a central role in the narrative spelled out by the government. Take her down, Wenig is alleged to have written in response to a post by the blogger. And when I read that, I seriously had a pit in my stomach, because if this is true, this means that this came from the very top of eBay. It's extremely problematic. The actual part of an article on E-commerce Bytes that he got upset about, allegedly, is this one here. It's the one from August 1st, 2019. Now, the article title itself isn't something you would think that eBay would get upset about, and it's not what he got mad at. It says eBay RICO lawsuit meant to curb sellers' exodus to Amazon. But if you scroll down and you read the last paragraph, this is what it is that triggered things. A lot of people are asking me today, what triggered all of this? Well, this is part of it. eBay's CEO has been unable to stop a decline in marketplace sales, but trying to dissuade sellers from turning to Amazon, and trying to get Amazon to stop recruiting sellers may not be the best tactic. So what is that? That's constructive criticism. That's what it is. Okay. Now, is that anything terrible to have said? Not really. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't really look at that as a personal attack. It's, again, I see it as constructive criticism. But obviously this was taken very personally. Now, not in a vacuum. It's also taken within the context of other articles that Devin Wenig apparently felt were critical of him. And not only that, there were also a bunch of comments in the comment section of the website that was really upsetting to him, and according to the criminal complaint, also upsetting to other people in senior leadership at eBay. Of particular concern was the comments of a blogger and someone on Twitter who was known as Fido Master, and he had other names. Fido Master 1 was another one. There were a couple others, but in the criminal complaint, this is referred to as the parody account, because what this person did sometimes as well was basically parody eBay's website and make negative comments about the company and use like a distorted eBay logo and that sort of stuff. And it was very frustrating to people at the company. And I could understand that. I could understand being frustrated and being upset if you feel there's unfair coverage or that type of stuff, and you feel like you're getting trolled. But there's a right way to handle that type of thing and a wrong way. We'll do a separate video in the future about, you know, approaches going forwards and, you know, things to, you know, to do to improve the company. But today I want to focus on what happened, what was the motivation, and what went down behind the scenes. Now, in the charging document, which I'll show you in a moment, Devin Wenig is referred to as Executive 1. Not charged. Executive 2 is also someone who's referred to who is not charged. Now, who is Executive 2? Well, we could speculate on who that is. It appears, based on a statement that was put out by eBay yesterday addressing this, they said that they cooperated with investigators and that, you know, they took some actions, one of which was the letting go of the director of communications at the time. And that was also in September 2019. And in fact, I remember looking at this exact story because one of the things that I do for my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center, is I cover the most important news items of the day related to reselling. And I not only cover eBay, but other sites as well. And so E-commerce Bytes is one of the sites that I go to and I look for stuff. And I'm always interested if there's turnover in an organization and what that might mean. And I remember reading this article, and I remember getting to the bottom of it because they were talking about Jordan Sweetnam, who I'll talk about in a moment. He's the vice president of eBay's North America division. Says, interestingly, while checking to see if Sweetnam had made it onto the eBay's top leaders page, he did not. We noticed that Steve Weimer, the head of eBay public relations, was missing from the page. He had been there as recently as September 10th, but was gone by or on the 25th. while Weimer's LinkedIn page, which he would manage, still displays his current role as SVP and Chief Communications Officer on eBay. It suggests there could have been some casualties accompanying last week's shakeup at the top. Indeed, there was. So that is who I believe executive number 2 is in the charging document. Now, speaking of Jordan Sweetnam, he also put out a comment yesterday on Facebook, and I'm not sharing it here only because I don't want people's private Facebook messages to start popping up in the middle of this recording, which is what would happen because I have my notifications on. So, but he did make comments indicating that he's frustrated, upset, that he's dedicated to the company. It was a very tough day. And, you know, a lot of things that he said in there that were good. And there's one comment, though, I want to point out, because I not only noticed this, but some other people did as well, and pointed out and felt that it sort of took away from part of the message, which was the statement that neither the company nor any current employee was indicted. Now, that's a true statement. That is a true statement. eBay was not indicted, and no current employee was indicted. Now, that's kind of a technicality in a sense, in that, well, of course, there were not current employees that were indicted, because the people who were, you know, responsible and alleged of being involved in this plot either don't work for the company anymore because they left, or they got arrested. You know, so that is like, of course, that part would be true. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there might not still be some people there at the company that had some involvement in this. And the reason I say that, and you'll see this in the charging document, the criminal complaint, is that while there are references to the people who are charged and references to Executive 1 and Executive 2, there's also references to eBay senior leadership. And so I don't know from reading that if that means some of those people can still be there. And that's why transparency and communication with resellers and other content creators is going to be particularly important here. Now, the statement that neither the company was indicted, well, the company eBay, yes, it's true. If you look at the criminal complaint, it doesn't literally say eBay. It names specific people. But what is eBay? You know, eBay's not like the Kool-Aid guy that, you know, runs around with an eBay logo who has a mouth and eyes that you could go and arrest him and put handcuffs around them. So what is it? I mean, it's an organization that's made up of people. Okay. And who would you think of is eBay? I mean, you'd think of, well, of course, eBay's the buyers and the sellers, but within the actual organization, it's the people who run it. Who would that be? Well, it would include the CEO, right? That would include the director of communications. That would include people in charge of security and, you know, people in executive positions. So, like I said, it kind of seemed a bit like a little bit of distancing there, when there's still, I believe, is a problem within the culture of the company that allowed this type of thing to happen. Now, that does not mean there's not good people at the company who want the company to succeed. I mentioned to Jordan, though, in an email I sent to him last night, that myself and other content creators and people who just post on Instagram or Facebook are worried now, if they post something that is constructive criticism about eBay and about eBay leadership and senior management, do we have to worry that we get put on a list, you know, that our listings are going to be scrutinized more, that we might get an increased chance that items are going to be taken down, you know, that we might get harassed, things like that. You know, we might get takedown requests for some of our YouTube videos. It's all very, very disturbing, which is another reason I think all this just needs to be out in the open. And the only way this is going to get resolved is not by whitewashing anything, but we need to have a continuous open discussion. I mean, I already see people out there who are acting like, okay, well, you know, it's the next day and let's put on our eBay shirts and rah, rah, rah. Well, not here. I'm not doing that, because, you know, you just cannot just go like this the next day and say, well, it's history and let's move past it. I'm going to remind people there's still an ongoing investigation about what happened. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to continue to look into here and work on resolving. And I'll do a separate video on things that could be, done to try to, move forwards with stuff in the future. But let me get into the charging document, which you could see here. I'll bring it up. There's no need for you to, really look at this much. I'm just kind of using it as guidance. I enlarged the font. There are certain images in here that I will want to show you later, and I'll let you know when that is. So let's talk about what the actual charges are to begin with. Okay, so conspiracy to commit cyberstalking, conspiracy to commit witness tampering. These are federal charges. Again, this comes from the Department of Justice, and this is from a U.S. attorney. This is very, very serious. We have allegations of multiple federal crimes. Now, you can see here, James Bao and David Harville, two former executives of eBay, are named. Later on in the document, there are separate, there's basically a separate complaint brought against 4 other eBay employees, who I'll mention in a moment. And that information there is very repetitive to what is contained in this main core of the document. So there's no need to really go over that part of it. It's all kind of covered within this first section. Now, conspiracy is really just a reference to a group of people who get together and, plan to commit a crime, a criminal offense. Often there's some secrecy that is involved in it, as is the case here. So let's get into who the players are, because I think that is important that we have that out in the open here so that we know exactly who is alleged to have been involved in this. So let's start with James Bao. I think that's how you pronounce the name, but he was eBay's senior director of safety and security. I mentioned how ironic that is, that an executive who's in charge of safety and security could be responsible for doing the things that were alleged in this complaint. He ran eBay's global security and resilience business, GSR, a company division responsible for, in general terms, the physical security of eBay's employees and facilities worldwide. Then we have Harville. Harville, who reported directly to Bao, was eBay's director of global resiliency, a unit focused on ensuring that eBay could continue to operate worldwide after business disruptions. And Bao recruited Harville from to eBay from a security consulting firm where the two had worked together. So they knew each other. So those are the 2 executives. And then we get to the other individuals here, the other employees. And keep in mind, these other employees are not, it's not like someone who's just sent out to get the coffee, for the CEO or something like that. I mean, these are people who, worked in higher level positions, not executive necessarily, but, people who are in management positions. So for example, Stephanie Pop, a target subject here, who served as Bao's basically de facto chief of staff. She was eBay's senior manager of global intelligence. Sounds almost like a government practically. They have a global intelligence agency. Wow. So before May 2019, Pop managed eBay's Global Intelligence Center, an intelligence and analytics group within the GSR business that supported eBay security operations. So I'll just refer to that as GIC. Then we have another Stephanie, there's Stephanie Stockwell. Stephanie Stockwell is an intelligence, or was an intelligence analyst in the GIC, who later became its manager when eBay reassigned Pop to work directly with Bao. Then we have Veronica Zia, who's sometimes referred to in the document as Ronnie. She, here, let's get to her description section. She was an eBay contractor who worked as an intelligence analyst in the GIC. And then we have Brian Gilbert. Brian Gilbert was a senior manager of special operations for eBay's global security team. And this is the person who was a former police captain in Santa Clara, California, who was responsible for, among other things, executive protection, special event security, and safety at eBay's North American offices. So it's important, these roles, because there's connections to, police and police knowledge, and really, a lot of potential here for a significant abuse of power, which is very, very, very concerning when this starts allegedly being unleashed towards people who are presenting constructive criticism about the company. So very, very worrisome. Now, the motivation I sort of mentioned this earlier, but people asked me this today. What was the motivation? What really led to this? The motivation in general was to take down the newsletter, the website, e-commerce bites, and its creators. So the couple that ran it, and to find out the identity of this Phytomaster character. And there were theories within some at eBay as to who this person might be. There was speculation that it might be the spouse of the woman who edited the site. It could maybe be some other person separate from them, but they were very frustrated and they want to figure out who it was. Now, one of the concerns that I want to mention here is that some of the statements that were made, and I'll show you this later, but some of the statements that were made in terms of directives to go after these individuals were so vague that it could have, and this is one of the reasons it's so serious, this literally could have led to somebody's death. It could have led to somebody's significant physical injury, okay? The reason for that is when you make broad statements to people to take someone down, to burn the person to the ground, that you want to see ashes, that anything, A-N-Y-T-H-I-N-G capitalized, anything it takes. And there's no qualifying statement that this does not mean that we don't do anything physical to this person. And hey, listen, when I say that, I just mean take down the website. There's no statement like that that's anywhere in the document. So that's definitely very concerning, because if you're giving out this order to people to do something, they kind of have pretty much, they could interpret that as free reign to do whatever they need to do, however long it takes, which is another statement that was made from executives to make sure these people are taken out. So that's another thing why I'm paying such close attention to this and bringing it even more attention to it, because this is really serious, really serious. I know nothing happened physically to anyone in terms of like an attack or anything like that, and there was no direct statement of that. But again, it was so concerningly vague that something like that could have happened. And we want to make sure we do things and we have a voice out there to proactively prevent something like this from happening in the future, so it doesn't lead to something like that down the road. So we have to have voices out there that are talking about this, even though me putting myself out here like this, puts myself at risk. It risks my channel potentially. It risks my eBay store that I've spent so long to build up. All those things become at risk, but it's important, and you have to stand on principle on certain things. So anyway, moving forwards. So one of the things eBay did do is they hired a consulting agency to figure out what the heck do we do with this website that we don't like. And one of the things that was suggested by the consulting agency was, listen, promote company-friendly news and content. And by doing that, that will help drive down traffic to this other site. It will drive them down in search, which in and of itself is problematic because it still indicates just a tendency not to listen to constructive criticism and to just try to suppress it. But it would have been a better approach than the things that were alleged in this document. That's not the route that, at least it's not the primary route that was taken here. Now, just to make sure, again, I'm trying to be as fair as possible. And when we're trying to understand some of the motivations here, there were some things that were said by this Phytomaster and also by other people who are commenting that are not, it's not the type of language that I really like to hear or that I really like to see. And some people will argue, well, some of this stuff might be accurate, but when it starts getting into name calling and, referring to people in eBay senior management as liars, thugs, devils, delusional criminals, thieves, tweets like that. And then when you get to the point where you're actually impersonating eBay communications with a distorted logo, I mentioned this earlier, I can understand why, people at eBay would get frustrated about that. Now, again, that does not in any way remotely justify the types of things that are alleged to have happened here. But there are a lot of negative comments about eBay and eBay's leadership. Now, in terms of getting into timeline here, in March 2019, Executive 2, so again, this seems like this would be the former director of communications, wanted a summary of Phytomaster's communications over the prior year, and that report was prepared. So that just gives you a little sense of where things start to heat up a little bit in terms of timeline. Everything here really in 2019. Although, you know, there had been years of, you know, articles coming out, so this didn't just happen all of a sudden with, you know, out of nowhere. I mean, there was a context to it. So in April to May of 2019, Bao summons people who are mentioned in this, some of the people who are mentioned in this charging complaint, and says that they're going to send an anonymous letter, a threatening letter to victim 1, who is the woman who runs the e-commerce bite site, and hope that that's going to be something that's going to convince her to take down the site or to stop doing these kind of articles. They ultimately didn't do that, take that approach to send the letter, but that was an initial thought that came out from one of the meetings. What seems to be one of the earliest things, if not the earliest thing that actually happened, is that Brian Gilbert is alleged to have gone over to the couple's home and to have written the word Phytomaster on the fence, which, you know, seems like a way to basically say, you know, somebody knows that you're actually this character who's saying these bad things about eBay. You know, and that would be something that would, you know, scare somebody to see something like that written on their, you know, on their fence like that on their personal property. So then in July, Bao is alleged to have directed Stephanie Stockwell and Veronica Zia to monitor the newsletter itself, to monitor the website, and to forward any, you know, interesting stories, any stories that, you know, they might be concerned about, you know, about eBay, over to him at any time during the day, day or night. So this is also concerning from a content creator perspective, or for anyone who's really posting on social media, is that if you get targeted like this, if you get identified, are you now put on some kind of watch list where people are basically, you know, stalking you essentially and taking screenshots of what it is you're saying, what it is you're doing, and sending it over to people at the eBay executive level? Like, that's just, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So next thing is that on July 18th, 2019, Devin Wenig's wife is said to told Bao that she is upset that she saw an article or a comment in an article on this site that referred to her husband as a con artist and a thief. So, you know, this is coming from the spouse of the CEO. So this is, again, raising additional concern, you know, with, you know, some of the executives about some of these communications. So by mid-July, Bao says that, is alleged to have said that identifying this Phytomaster person is a top priority for eBay's executive leadership, including executive 1 and 2. So again, you know, this is what I mentioned earlier. It's a reference to executive leadership, including 1 and 2, but there could be other people who are not named. Remember, this is a continuous and ongoing investigation. Now, on August 1st, that's when that e-commerce bites story came out. That is supposed to have upset Devin Wenig and led to the takedown request and to go forwards with that. And that was actually an hour and a half after the article came down. He basically tells Executive 2 that, you know, if there's any time that we're going to take this person down, this is the time. And Executive 2 responds by saying, on it. So then Executive 2 tells Bao that Devin Wenig wants the lady taken down. So now the plan is put into motion, essentially. And I'm going to show you, this is something that you might want to take a look at. This is an actual text message. It says here, point 38, as set forth below, a series of text messages followed between Executive 2 and Bao, beginning with Executive 1's suggestion to Executive 2 that, quote, we take her down, unquote. And here you can see it says on the top, Executive 2's initials and first name were redacted. And it says, Victim 1 is out with a hot piece on the litigation. If we're ever going to take her down, now is the time. And then it says, I saw it. Then it says, hatred is a sin. I am very sinful. Then it says, let me ask you this. Do we need her entire site shut down? The person says, I'm not effing around anymore with her anymore. Then it says, amen, I want her done. And then it says, Executive 1's initials. So presumably that says DW, said to burn her to the ground, correct? And then the response is, she's a biased troll who needs to get burned down. You know, and so when you start talking about burn down, you know, these are violent statements, okay? Now, someone could say, well, that's not meant literally. You know, that's just meant as kind of a expression. But again, there's never any qualifying statements that that this should not be interpreted as, you know, any kind of threat of physical harm towards this person. So, in August, planning and the planning and execution of a harassment campaign gets put forth against this couple. And it's really scary. The goal of the harassment campaign was to distract and make the couple, particularly the woman running the e-commerce site, to feel uncomfortable and to stop publishing what eBay felt were negative articles. And so they actually, when you read it, it's just so immature when you see that they actually played, someone actually played a video clip of the movie Johnny Be Good, where they bring a bunch of surprising deliveries to the, you know, to the football coach's house that he never ordered or never wanted, and they, you know, kind of wanted to do something like that to kind of basically prank this lady, but with some pretty intimidating and scary things. So we're talking about some of the things I mentioned yesterday: a bloody pig mask, the book on, you know, how to grieve the death of a spouse, again indicating that some type of physical harm would happen to the other person's, you know, the other person's spouse. And then they would sometimes send tweets, harassing tweets that would coincide with the actual delivery. So something would arrive, and then there would be a tweet that would come, you know, to them directly saying, you know, something about what they actually just received, which, you know, there's nothing scarier sometimes than feeling like someone is watching you and you don't know where they're coming from. And, you know, where are they? Are they parked outside? Are they across in a window? And people start to become, you know, paranoid about what is going on. You know, and rightfully so. When this kind of stuff is happening, you know, things like, do I have your attention now? Like those kind of comments. Pornography was sent up to 3 times and to neighbors with, for example, the husband's name on it, you know, to make people believe that they were ordering this type of stuff, to damage their reputation in the community. You know, I don't know about, you know, your neighbors, but there are certain neighbors that, you know, if they get something like that, they're going to blab it around to everybody. And now next thing you know it's all around town that so-and-so gets, you know, Hustler magazine delivered to their house that says barely legal on it. And, you know, barely legal was the actual cover on one of these things that, you know, was sent. And that's one of the things I'll show later if I come across it. Don't worry, there's no nudity or anything like that. That I'm going to show was covered up in the image. So there was that type of stuff. There was a sympathy wreath that was sent to the house. That would be something that would be sent, you know, in the context of someone dying. So again, the reference there to, you know, to something physically harmful that could happen to somebody. And then, you know, mixed in with just some immature stuff like, you know, pizza deliveries, you know, $70 worth of pizza that, you know, they never delivered, that they never ordered, sorry. Things like harassing phone calls, like they would get a call from, you know, Adam and Eve sex toy franchise and being told, hey, we heard you wanted to open a franchise. And they never obviously made that kind of call. Being sent things like live spiders and fly larvae. harassing local posts, like taking out ads in Craigslist. And some of these ads are shown here in the charging document, saying that there's going to be, swinger parties and to come knock on the door any time of day, that they're liquidating their estate for a week. And, in another ad somewhere else, like a yard sale website, and to, knock on the door anytime during the week to try to make a deal. And they were delighting, by the way, and that this type of stuff was happening, that, every 10 minutes someone was knocking on their door, and it's just continued harassment from multiple angles. Taking out ads that there was a male-female couple seeking an activity partner. And again, people in the community are going to see things like that are posted, and there's going to be people who are wondering, hey, what is going on with these people? Who the heck is, who the heck are these people, involved with? And, just people are going to start, again, talking, and it's going to smear their reputation. So, again, here's another comment from, an eBay executive: whatever it takes to take this person down, so it's just one thing after another. Now, another thing that happened is they tried to conceal things. So they tried to make the deliveries untraceable. So what they would do is they would use things like prepaid debit cards, anonymous email accounts for online orders. They would use a VPN account to try to shield what IP address that they were using. They would use, they actually went out and purchased separate phones and computers so that they weren't actually, eBay computers and eBay phones that they were using. Here's another thing, by the way. This came from Jim Bao's phone. It actually shows an image of Jim Bao's phone right there. And it says right there, I can neutralize victim one's website in 2 weeks or less. Does that work for you? And then the response is, I want to see ashes as long as it takes, whatever it takes. I mean, it's sick. It's sick. And it's completely, it's just crazy. It's totally out of line. Now, I'm going to go back to this screen over here, because one of the other things that happened here is that one of the plans that was made was to send a Samoan gang to their house to basically threaten them and potentially physically harm them. Now, why Samoan, you wonder? Like, why Samoan? Now, I'm a former and still a big fan of professional wrestling, and I remember the Wild Samoans, Alpha and Sika, so big shout out to them. But as you can see there, they do look a little wild and they look a little scary. And in California, there is a gang. It's a Crips affiliated street gang known as the Sons of Samoa, and eBay is located in California. And as it says here, they are involved in violent crime, which is mostly committed by younger members, as well as organized crime, which is mostly the business of older and ambitious hardcore members of the gang. And they are involved in extortion and contract killings. Okay? And one of the statements that was made about by one of the executives, Jim Bao, by sending these Samoans, the Samoan gang, over to the house, is that they're not good guys, and whatever happens is going to be out of my control. Whatever happens will be out of my control. So what does that mean, whatever happens? Whatever happens if they get killed? Here's another message that's just crazy. I won't send the boss's text, but I've been ordered to find and destroy. I mean, again, there's another thing. When I read this, I literally had a pit in my stomach. I've been ordered to find and destroy. Again, there's physical implications with that. And I'm not sending the boss's text indicates that, there's some messages that, I don't know, we might not know about. Who's the boss? Is the boss Devin Wenig? You would presume so. It's just absolutely crazy. So, and later on, by the way, in the part about, obstructing justice and witness tampering, there's all sorts of attempts to make sure that there is no mention of Executive 1 and Executive 2 to leave them out. So all these other people are basically taking the hit, which is unfortunate, really is unfortunate, because if this stuff is true, I mean, I don't know the legalities of what is required to bring charges. But if all this stuff is true, you know, from everything I read, my personal opinion, not a legal opinion, but just my personal opinion on what is right and just the morals of this, is that Executive 1 and Executive 2 should be charged in this to the fullest extent that's possible. Who knows if that will happen? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. Again, there's still an ongoing investigation. Now, another thing that happens, and this actually relates back to the Samoans, is that they actually created, you know, some of the people who are involved in this, allegedly, fake Twitter accounts to send these trolling messages that I mentioned earlier. And, you know, some of these accounts were designed to look like real eBay sellers' names to make them feel like, where, you know, that there are resellers out there that are upset at e-commerce bites for publishing negative stories about eBay to try to get them to stop. And the goal with these harassing tweets, which were filled with vulgarities, I am not going to repeat them or say them. You could read them in the charging document if you want to, but it was to progress and become more aggressive over time to the point of doxing, which I mentioned yesterday, is to do things that in social media will publicly, you know, publish their address and contact information, which is going to further intimidate them. So, one of the Twitter accounts that was used that sent some of the most vulgar tweets was one that was called TUI_ELEI. So you wonder, why the heck did they use that? That was meant to sound Samoan. And then when that one got taken down, they just created another one that was reversed. So it said ELEI_TUI. And then they would, you know, send messages like, ha, 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 you know, you thought you could take me down because you reported this first account while I'm back and you would never be able to stop me. You know, and then they had some very scary images that were associated. And I think I might have one of those up here. Let me go back to my screen. Here we go. You know, these were some of the images, if you want to take a look at this, that were associated with some of these accounts. And actually, one of these, this one with the scary mask that's blocked out, they actually used the name of an active eBay seller that had nothing to do with this, by the way. So how crazy is that? So, I mean, it's just the more and more you read it, that's why, again, I want to go over this in detail. It's just the crazier that it gets. So now, one of the things that talks about in the document that is part of the strategy that was used is something called the White Knight strategy. And the White Knight strategy, which has to go down as one of the stupidest and moronic and completely failed attempts to intimidate someone and to try to get the information that you want. This approach was designed to do all this harassment, all this stalking and everything, send all these, you know, all these packages and stuff and take out all these ads and harass them to the point that eventually what they plan on doing is that someone within of this group within eBay would call the couple and offer to help them out and try to get in their good graces when all the while they were the ones doing this stuff, you know, involved in it. And then to get them to eventually confide in them who Fidomaster was and to agree to stop, you know, in exchange, hey, we'll get these people to stop stalking you if you know, we'll do an investigation, we'll try to figure it out, you know, but, you know, shut down the, you know, the negative articles, something like that. So, by the way, when they actually did attempt that and made a phone call over to there, I give them a lot of credit that they didn't even want to talk to eBay and basically just, you know, the people from eBay that called over there, the executive, and basically said, you know, you could talk to the police department. We're not talking to you. The husband apparently indicated a willingness to talk, but the wife is like, no way. Why would they? You know, by that point, they were actually being actively surveilled. So I mentioned this yesterday. There was a plan to, and they actually practiced this. James Bao is alleged to have practiced installing in eBay parking lot a GPS surveillance system in a car that actually matched the type of car that the couple had. So they had it, you know, exactly pinned down because they eventually went out to where they lived in Natick. And I hear some people calling it Natick, but it's Natick, Natick, Massachusetts. And they actually conducted 4 separate surveillance campaigns. Now, one of their goals was to actually install this GPS tracking software. And you might wonder, well, why the heck would they do that? Why would they want to install GPS tracking software on them? Well, the point was, if they think that this Phytomaster who's saying all this negative stuff about eBay is somebody else other than them, they wanted to figure out who they were. So they thought, they were convinced that they were collaborating in some way. And so, you know, if they ever drove over supposedly to this person's house or where they were, then they'd be able to track and figure out, you know, who this person is. Like, that's how obsessed they were to do this. Now, they actually couldn't get into the garage. But they planned on trying, it looked like they planned on trying to break into the garage, because they went to a hardware store and started purchasing all sorts of things that you would use to break into a garage, and install the stuff. Now, fortunately, thank goodness, the couple was, you know, alert enough to notice that they were being surveilled, and they were literally being physically trailed in the vehicle as they're driving around. And they would sometimes be able to take a picture of the license plate. Now, one of the license plates they took a picture of, and they reported this to the police. They couldn't track it because they were off by 1 letter. But later on, they were actually able to get a photograph of the license plate of a GMC they were using, and they actually did get the plate on that. And that is ultimately, as we'll talk about later, what started the process of the undoing of this entire plot and this entire scheme. So anyway, let's see. Let me go down a little bit here. Just, you know, there's a lot of other continuing messages in here. Here's the pig mask, by the way. If you didn't, you probably saw this. This is one of the lead images that's in a lot of these stories there. You know, who wants that delivered to their home? And it's scary. A lot of people are going to get scared at stuff like that. You know, something like that gets sent over, especially in the context of all the other things that get sent over. Here's the book, the death, surviving the loss of a spouse book that was sent over. If you're interested in what that looked like, that's a book that you could find on Amazon that was sent over. So there's that. This is the magazine I was talking about, the barely legal one, XXX, full-length DVD inside. You know, so this is what wound up in the neighbor's mailbox. And, you know, I think that the term barely legal was used purposely, because it was used to kind of insinuate that maybe these people, you know, have some kind of, you know, proclivities towards, like, you know, pedophilia or something like that. That's the insinuation they're trying to make when they're talking about something that's barely legal. You know, so it's absolutely disgusting. So moving forwards in the document, just to continue with some of this, I think there were some texts here that I might want to bring up. I'm not sure. You know, there's some text here, or not text, but there's some images here that show, for example, some of the ads that were taken out on Craigslist. Like, here's one: block party in Natick. Let's have some fun. You know, come knock on the door, ring the doorbell any time of day or night. Block party will start at 10 p.m., but we'll go late. Singles, couples, swingers, okay. And there you go. They published the actual address. So, you know, here's another one: male, female couple seeking activity partner. So, you know, it just goes on and on, just continuous stuff. Here's another, you know, this is a picture in the charging document of one of the images that I showed earlier. Here's another one right here with the pig mask on it, which, by the way, you know, that's chosen purposely to match up with what was sent in the mail. So, you know, I heard at least one person say, well, if I received something like that in the mail, I would just laugh. Well, no, I don't think you would, if it was in that context of all this other stuff. I mean, that is scary as hell if you get something like that sent to you. Kidding me? So, just continues to go on, more and more images and details, and other text messages here that are sent, and emails and communications. So they started to create fake reasons for the trip. They wanted to try to disguise this as much as possible. They created a fake person of interest document so that if the police ever, you know, asked them, what the heck are you doing in town, they would have something that would say, listen, we're investigating these people because they are doing these bad things about our company on their site. And the stuff that they put in this document to give to police was filled with stuff that was completely unsubstantiated. Like, it wasn't accurate information that was put in there. So they were literally monitoring the police feeds, by the way, when they were in the area near their home, to, be able to see if the police were coming anywhere close by, if the police had gotten a report that the couple was being stalked or that the couple was being followed. And when that did happen, they immediately would go and return the cars and return the vehicles. And then they would go rent another one. And like I said, this happened up to 4 times. So by August 16th, they went out, the 2 executives and someone else named in the charges here, went out for a $750 dinner in Boston. Again, I can't help but wonder how much of this came from eBay seller fees. Executives further discussed sending a chainsaw, feces, and dead rats over to their house. And they were, the executives here were celebrating reports to the police that they were making of distress about the harassment they were going on. And they were laughing that the couple, seemed to get, paranoid about what was going on. Laughing that people were showing up and, and that they were calling the police basically every 10 minutes. And they make it clear that their goal was to make this couple look crazy. And in fact, initially, the police did think that the couple was paranoid. I mentioned this yesterday. What is the average person going to think if someone's calling saying that they think eBay's doing this? And not only that, eBay actually knew, well, I should say eBay, but the people with these people who are charged within eBay knew that that was something that people would think, that they would think it's ridiculous that we would do these types of things. So they were purposely using knowledge that people would think that this is crazy and something that eBay wouldn't do to justify actually going out and doing that and using that as a form of defense. So sort of like a reverse psychology that they were trying. Now, at one point, Bao suggests bringing the fake documents to the police to make the victims look crazy because, the police are continuously getting involved because they're continuously getting called. Now, as an aside, and this just further goes to show some of the abuse of power that is going on here. It says in the document that Bao tasks an eBay analyst, so an employee of eBay, to investigate a local prosecutor or a prosecutor. Actually, I shouldn't say local. I don't know if it was local, but to investigate a prosecutor looking after his father and wants information on the prosecutor's wife. He wants the wife's name, wants the wife's cell phone info, email info, wants the kids' names, and appears to threaten the person with blackmail in the communications, saying, this is what we could do. We could threaten this person with blackmail. So that's what I mean, that there is a way of thinking there amongst some people, at least, that this is the way that you solve problems, is that you just annihilate people and you just totally take them down. So they continued to obstruct the investigation. And let me show you how some of this kind of wound up getting discovered. And says Gilbert reported to the group that he had spoken to the police department there in Natick. It says the detectives are involved. I spoke to so-and-so and he gave up everything. Initially, the police department was disregarding the reports as paranoia. But when they, and this is referring to the couple, when the couple gave them an accurate license plate number, the detectives tracked it back to Veronica Zia. They also identified the pizza delivery as coming from gift cards purchased in Santa Clara. And then they learned that Zia lived in Santa Clara. The rental car was turned into the Ritz-Carlton, which led the detectives to the Ritz. And then when they checked with the hotel, they learned that Zia was currently staying there and that David Harville, one of the executives, is also staying at the Ritz. So they contacted someone at eBay, the police did, and confirmed that Zia is with the Global Intel Center and Harville is with the Global Security Resiliency Center. And now the police department thinks that there's a connection with eBay, which, yeah, there is. There is a connection with at least some people, you know, who were working within eBay. So the attempts at obstruction continued. If you read the document, what you're going to see is there were continued attempts at lying to law enforcement, which is very frustrating if we are trying as creators and as resellers to work with eBay, and eBay is going to tell us something and say, you know, no, this isn't true. We don't ever block your listings from ever being seen. That's why this is so important. How are we to believe that type of stuff now? How are we to believe anything? This is so big and so bad that it creates such a blanket of mistrust over the entire company, even though the entire company obviously isn't involved in it as select people, but there's so many people, and the fact that it comes from so many multiple executives, that's what makes this, and executives at such a high level, that it really just creates such a cloud over so much now. Making up stories, just making up totally fabricated stories about, for example, why they were in the Natick area, why they were doing what they were doing, why this person was over at that place and this place, and just continuing to invent things and trying to get everyone on the same page so that they all had the same message. Another thing that's very troubling is that they thought that they could manipulate the police officers, and they kind of talk about the police officers as if they were almost like puppets. In fact, one of the things that happened with the pizza, the cards that were used to purchase the pizzas, is it was tracked back to this one of the stores in Santa Clara, and eventually they figured that what was going to happen, and this actually is something that I think they wound up doing, is the police department wound up saying, well, we could just go get video of who purchased these cards on that day at the Santa Clara retail store. Now, they mentioned that, well, they're not really too worried about it because the person had used somewhat of a disguise when going to purchase the gift card, which is also concerning, that they're wearing disguises when they're going in to do this type of stuff. It's just crazy. But then they talk about, well, you know what? We'll make, if that happens, maybe, we could go in, we could have a talk with the local police officer, and, we could see if we could get a video of a different Safeway or a different store. I think it was a Safeway, a different store in Santa Clara where these gift cards were purchased. So, that would be, completely fabricating the evidence. I mean, it's totally insane. So, in addition to that, and you can see this is one of the parts of the document that comes up, I mentioned this yesterday, there were attempts to pin parts of what happened on other people. So to pin the deliveries on people, to pin the harassing messages on people. In fact, they were thinking of, pinning some of this stuff on a Samoan person in the area, which, I don't know how many Samoans there are living in California, but there can't be that many. I mean, of all the groups to pick, this just goes to show the stupidity of some of the things that went on in this scheme. You're going to pick Samoans to pin, and how many people from Samoa are, and Samoan gang members, for example, are interested in stuff that's going on eBay and, reading e-commerce sites, and that's no offense to people who are maybe watching this who have, ethnicity from Samoa and stuff. But I'm just saying, like, of all the groups that you're going to pick, it just seemed very strange and, you know, very silly when then you're going to try to pin it on somebody from there. It's just saying there's a narrower group of people to try to do that with. So there was a lot of coaching that went on. So they would coach each other when, you know, it was found out that, for example, they had to talk to police officers and do interviews, that the police officers called over to eBay's legal department to do an investigation. And so this is where things just slowly continue to unravel, because, you know, you could just keep stories together for so long and things just start to not make sense, especially when they're not true and the facts and the data just don't support it. And so another thing that happened as part of the cover-up is that there was a fake email that was written within eBay from Pop to Gilbert, and it was one of the few emails that was ever put on the eBay server to basically say, hey, look, we discovered that there's some people who are really upset, you know, sending some nasty tweets that they themselves actually wrote. But hey, look, this person from, you know, this e-commerce, this person from this e-commerce site is really upsetting people, and people are sending some really nasty tweets now, just to kind of try to establish a record, like something official within eBay, you know, that they had seen that there was, you know, something concerning about that site. So like that's the extent that, you know, that this thing went to. So it was August 22nd, 2019, when the Natick Police Department contacted the FBI and the legal department. And Bao then contacts executive number 2 to basically let him know, look, we've been kind of investigating, and it looks like they found out some of what we're doing here, and actually tries to see if they could get cover even from executive 1, maybe an executive 2. I'm actually going to read this for you. This is real important. It says, hi, this is Jim Bao's personal cell. Again, this is a message from Jim Bao to executive 2. My team ran an op on our friend in Boston. Nothing illegal occurred. Now, this is me inserting this right here. Yes, there was. If the allegations are true, there was. Nothing illegal occurred, and we were actually intending to team up with her and get her on our side in a positive manner. However, small town police got a couple of rental car plates and tracked it back to my people and the hotel they were staying at. They sent the note to eBay Investigations GAP team, who then passed it to legal, and they're conducting an internal investigation on us. We're cooperating, but I know they realize that something is off. We will continue to cooperate, but not sure how much longer we can keep this up. See, they know the game is up at this point. Going back to the text, the message. If there is any way to get some top cover, that would be great. If not, I just wanted you to have a heads up, because they are aware that multiple members of the ELT, and I believe that means eBay legal team, are not a fan of that website, to include executive 1 and his wife. It could mean the executive team. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what ELT means. But again, no crime was committed and local police don't have a case. I don't want our legal team to give them one. Let me know if you want to discuss this weekend. So not only, if these allegations are true, is Jim Bao trying to deceive the police, trying to deceive the couple, obviously, in some of the things that happen, but this is actually a deception attempt made towards executive number 2, trying to deceive people above and saying, hey, listen, everything's okay. We need some cover. We didn't really do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, all just totally not true, again, if these things are correct in terms of what it says. And then there's a point, as I mentioned earlier, where Bao tells the other people in the team, make sure that you keep executive 1 and keep executive 2 out of the conversation. So I'm going to stop sharing this part right here. We could go back to my main screen. So yeah, I just want to get rid of that because I don't need that anymore. But Bao said to, again, keep them out of the conversation, executive 1, executive 2, according to the complaint. And then eBay's legal department, and this is another problem that needs to be fixed going forward, is that eBay's legal department initially was doing interviews with these, people who are charged on speakerphone. So it actually describes that while they're interviewing them on speakerphone, that they're like getting cues by other people who are alleged to be involved in the crimes in terms of what to say. You can't do the investigation that way. Like, even I know that, and that's just from watching police shows and lawyer shows and stuff on television, crime shows. You have got to separate the people from interest, put them in separate rooms so they cannot coordinate their stories, do the interviews with people separately, play people off on one another. That's what you've got to do. Now, eventually it got to that. eBay legal department, directed them to appear at eBay's headquarters for an interview. And, there were times where they were saying, well, we're not going to communicate with you. We're not going to talk to you anymore. Blah, blah. They were even trying to obstruct things with eBay's legal department. Eventually, eBay did tell them to make sure that they turned in their phones, their eBay phones, and any personal phones that they may have used to communicate, and not to wipe any of the data from it. But sure enough, that's exactly what they are alleged to have done. But that type of stuff can still be traced back. Even if you think, oh, I deleted it from my phone. Listen, the stuff is still out there, and the companies like Apple and stuff can still access that information, with a proper proper search warrant, legal proceedings that allow them to release that type of information. It can eventually get released. So don't think that just because you deleted something that no one else could get it. So long video, like I said, but important to get this out there. So let me know your comments down below now that you know the full details. I'm interested in pieces that you might have heard from this. If you didn't read the document, maybe you just heard the story yesterday that you're particularly shocked in, particularly surprised in. As more information comes out about this, as the story evolves and develops, I am going to cover it. And we'll see what happens. Try to cover it as fair as possible, but as I tried to do today. But this is really very, very serious, and we really have to be together in the content community, and in the reseller community as well, content creator community and reseller community. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I've got a live show tomorrow night where we'll do some fun stuff and move away from some of the serious stuff, and then eventually I'd like to do a video talking about some productive ways to go forwards in terms of things that should have been done differently in handling this situation, and then what to do from here in the future. So remember, if you enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new, haven't been here before. There's almost 700 videos devoted to reselling, which is what I prefer to talk about, things to be on the lookout, treasure hunts, not this type of stuff. This type of stuff has wasted my, most of my day. Actually, I should have been doing a lot of listings, but instead I was focused on this and really making sure I read this document. So anyway, make sure I mentioned my Facebook group, Facebook Reselling Resource Center. Come by there if you want additional news updates about this. I put, little announcements and stuff up in the announcement section. So you go by there if you want to stay up to date with the news. So with that, everyone, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you all at the next one. Take care.